Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Suranjali Seal, and like I always say, if you are somebody that loves literature and is all about literature, then this is the channel for you. In our video today, we're going to look at two literary devices. One is the paradox and the other is an oxymoron. Now, before this, I would want to just clear out a few things. Like the simile and the metaphor, when we covered the two figures of speech, we realize that in definition they sound very, very similar, right? But there are differences between the two concepts. Now here too, between the paradox and an oxymoron, in definition they sound very, very similar to each other. The definition will sometimes have you confused because both of them talk about contradictions, but there are differences between the two. If you're clear about the concept, then you'll never forget the definition and you'll never be confused even when you actually spot an oxymoron, or when you're asked to identify an oxymoron, or when you're actually answering anything related to the two terms in your examinations. So we have to understand what a paradox and oxymoron is in contrast to each other so that the concept is clear. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Now see, both a paradox and an oxymoron involve contradictions. They have an important difference though. Now, what is the contradiction? A paradox by definition is a rhetorical device or a self-contradictory statement that can actually be true. So the statement might sound very out of the box and absurd. It might talk about contradictory ideas, but when you think about it, it makes sense. Now, I think I remember I talked about this in my Aristotle video when we were covering the Greek critics. I had told you that the oracle at Delphi had actually considered or had said that Aristotle is the wisest man in Athens. During his time, he was the wisest man in Athens. Now, why did the oracle at Delphi say that? Remember, I told you it's because Aristotle recognized his own ignorance. It's because Aristotle believed that he knew nothing. He was so wise that, his wisdom lies in the fact that he recognized that it is impossible to have or accumulate all the knowledge in the world. So he said that I know nothing. The first step to knowing is accepting the fact that you don't know anything. When you say, okay, I don't know this, then only you will be motivated for more research. Then only you would want to go ahead and find out more. So Aristotle's wisdom lies in the fact that he recognized his own ignorance. And remember that famous line I had told you, I know that I know nothing. All I know is that I know nothing. This is what Aristotle had said, and that is why the oracle at Delphi had considered him or said that he is the wisest man in Athens. Now see, we might say that I know the laws. You might say that I know how the world works. I know what globalization is. I know what kind of laws are out there. I know what environment issues are. You might say these things, okay? Consider yourself just above the earth. This is the ball of life where we live, and just consider yourself in space. You see, all man-made things cease to make sense. Rules that we have made up for ourselves, laws that we've made up for ourselves cease to make sense out there because that's existence, that's the universe out there, and it kind of highlights how far we still have to go as a civilization. We don't fully know the secrets to the universe. We haven't even revealed the entire secrets to our own existence, right? So we don't know what infinity is. We don't know how vast space is even. So what I'm trying to say is, no matter how much we think that we know everything, within the earth, we feel like we're in control. But the truth is, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So all I know is that I know nothing. This is an example of a paradox, a classic example of a paradox. Now, why is it a paradox? Because look at the second point there. A seemingly absurd or contradictory statement or proposition which when investigated may prove to be well founded or true. So what is the characteristic of a paradox? First, that it's going to sound absurd. It might sound out of the box. It might not even make sense to you in the first go when you listen to a paradox, because it talks about contradictory. It is a contradictory statement. So it is one whole statement which is full of contradictions. But when you sit and think about it, it does make sense. It does turn out to be true. So all I know is that I know nothing sounds opposite, sounds contradictory, but when you think about it, it sounds very, very profound. This is a paradox. It's a contradictory statement. Now, oxymoron is a figure of speech that pairs two contradictory or opposing words. So you have to remember, it is not a statement, it is two opposing words. So I can give you an example of this. I'll just read the second point. An oxymoron, the words themselves have a shade of contradiction in their definitions. So in a statement, in the paradox, you're giving the whole statement, you're forming a statement of contradictions, right? It's very profound. It might have wisdom, it might turn out to be true. In oxymoron, you're using like two pairs of words. These two words are complete opposites to each other. They're complete contradictions. I'll give you an example. Bittersweet. Imagine some loved one has come to visit you, and then after staying with you for 5-6 days, the loved one is now going back home. So it's a bittersweet moment when you have to say your goodbyes, right? So it's a bittersweet moment. Bitter and sweet are complete opposites to each other. Exact opposite of sweet is bitter. But then you're using it, and it's for effect. When you actually you cannot just use two random words, hot and cold. You cannot just use it like that and say it's an oxymoron. No, oxymoron has to have an effect on the audience that's listening to it. So when you say bittersweet, all of us have experienced this, right, in life. So it has an effect on us as an audience. So let us just see how can we spot a paradox and how can we spot an oxymoron when we're reading something. So you have to, when you talk about paradox, you have to think in opposites. Think in opposites as in contradictions. Understood? Even an oxymoron, two opposite words. You have to think in opposites only. When you talk about a paradox, what is the end? Some kind of truth. You have to arrive at some kind of truth. You have to give some kind of profound wisdom towards the end of a paradox. You cannot just randomly state a statement. It has to have some kind of truth that you're aiming towards. Oxymoron, it is not random opposite words. It is not random. Even the statement that you're saying over here, it's not just a random statement. You're actually aiming for a truth. And here in an oxymoron, it's not random words. You have to choose it carefully. Why? If contradictory, the statement is contradictory in a paradox, but suppose you're aiming for a paradox and it's a contradictory statement, but it makes no sense in the end, then it is not considered a paradox. If you just make a statement of contradictory ideas and towards the end it has no meaning whatsoever, it is not a paradox. Okay, and oxymoron, they have to be so chosen so as to have an effect over the audience. So I'm talking to you right now and I'm just talking just for the sake of emphasis. I'll just say okay, today we're going to talk about paradox and oxymoron, hot and cold. If I just say like this and I continue the sentence, it is not an oxymoron. Why? Because I just randomly use the word hot and cold over here without any context, without any effect. If I'm just reading like this and I'm telling you hot and cold and then I'm continue to reading, makes no sense, right? You have to use it at the appropriate time and appropriate space so that it has an effect on the audience. So this is what a paradox is and what an oxymoron is. Now we're just going to look at some examples. For paradox, less is more. Another classic example. How can less be more? They are contradictory words. It's a contradictory statement, right? But towards the end, you'll understand it's a profound idea, right? That less is more. The only constant is change. The characteristic of change is that it's not constant. And the characteristic of being constant is that it is stagnant, right? It is not dynamic. It's not changing. But we've used constant and change here. We've used the only constant is change to actually highlight to you the truth that change has been something which was part and parcel of our lives all throughout civilization. Nothing is stagnant. The world is changing every day. So this is what is highlighted here. So you're arriving at some kind of a profound wisdom, profound idea, profound truth. So the only rule is that there are no rules. The more you know you don't know. So all I know is that I know nothing. Now for oxymoron, we have virtual reality. Again, a very modern day example. How can something virtual be something reality, but we use it together, right? Virtual reality. Random order. How can you have order, but it's also random? So you just arrange it in random order, you see. Then you have noticeably absent, sweet agony, bittersweet, like I said. Then you have open secret. Like you don't want to accept something, everybody knows, like everybody knows that it's going on, but you're not saying it openly. So you say, oh, it's such an open secret. How can a secret be open? A secret is not supposed to be open, right? So it's an open secret. Awfully good. So you see, a paradox and oxymoron both talk about contradiction, but there is the difference. Now, what is the difference that we learned? First, that a paradox is a contradictory statement and an oxymoron is a pair of contradictory or opposing words. So the difference here is between the statement and the words. So I hope that this is very, very clear to you. This is all for today's video. We have completed these two figures of speech, and I'll see you in my next one.